Hey guys, this is Dima Aryeh from DroidDog.com, and today I'll be reviewing the HTC Incredible 4G LTE. This is Verizon's Droid line of phones, and in terms of specs, it has a 4-inch QHD display, SLCD2, a Snapdragon S4 processor at 1.2 GHz. It's a little lower than most phones, but it's still a very good processor. An 8 megapixel camera shooting at 1080p, and a gigabyte of RAM. It's a very solid phone in terms of specs, and it's a good size too. First of all, I'd like to talk about design. This is a very well designed phone. It looks gorgeous. I love the backing. It's ridged, so it has a very good grip. All the red accents, the Beats logo, the camera ring, the top button is red, the grill on the top is red, the chrome, everything looks really, really good. Very good design. That's in terms of appearance anyway. And I actually really like it. The first time I saw it, I really liked it, and so has everyone else that has seen this phone. And I think they designed it really well. The design does have a few minor problems though. First of all, in this grill, dust collects very easily. This is a problem on all phones with grills that kind of go in a little. It was a problem on my BlackBerry Torch 2, and the same goes for here. The dust collects in there really easily, and it's not easy to clean out without canned air or something. Also, the vibration motor. The vibration motor is very weak here, and it's not very accurate. Every vibration is dull and prolonged. For typing, this isn't very good. I love haptic feedback, and it just doesn't perform very well. It doesn't give that tiny sharp vibration my Samsung Galaxy S2 does, which is a bit unfortunate, but it's not really a deal breaker. Also, the glass is too thick. I'm not sure if this is a problem with all HTC phones, but I've talked to people and it's been confirmed on both this phone and the HTC One S. The glass is quite thick, so you don't feel like you're touching the actual screen, you feel like you're touching glass in between screens. So in comparison, a lot of other phones like Samsung's have thinner glass, and it actually feels like you're interacting with the UI. It makes a little bit of a difficulty typing, but again, it's not much of a deal breaker. These are all very minor things. There's also light bleed. If you look at the capacitive buttons in the dark, right here, there's some bleeding from behind the glass. It's, again, all of this stuff is small. Plus the LED, this has a notification LED, very dim, very hard to see. I was surprised because I've always wanted an LED on a phone, and I've been using a Galaxy S and a Galaxy S2 for the longest time, and they didn't have any. This LED just pretty much useless because you can't see it. The one on the BlackBerry, so much better. Another thing, the menu button. Well, it doesn't have one. It's okay on the One X to an extent. I hate it, but a lot of people are okay with it. When you open up an app that doesn't support the menu button, for example Facebook, this shows up. On an HD phone, it's not a huge deal. You have 1280 by 720 display with a tiny piece sticking out. On a QHD phone, it's a pretty big deal. It takes up a huge amount of space. One thing I do have to give to HTC is that this, unlike the One series, this has a removable cover. Once you remove it, which is a bit difficult, but not too bad, it has a removable battery and a microSD card slot. The One series doesn't have these things, but since this is not a One series phone, it has both a removable battery and a microSD card slot. And honestly, I appreciate that very much. Thank you, HTC. Now let's talk about build quality. This is the one thing the phone fails horribly at. The build quality is really subpar. The back creaks. Any push you make on it, it creaks. It's very badly designed. And I don't know if you can see this, but if you push on the sides of the screen, they waver. And this is very light pushing too, and I know you can't see it, but the wavering is really bad. Here's a bit of a closer shot of the wavering. As you can see, well, probably can't see, it's extremely strong. Even pressing the back button has a ton of waver in the screen. That means the glass is touching the screen, which is not a good thing. I've never seen this happen in a phone that's not extremely low end, and this is quite a bad thing. As for other notes on hardware, there are two problems with this. First of all, the earpiece. It's very, very, very loud, louder than I've heard on any other phone. But that's not a good thing, it actually distorts slightly. Once you push volume down once or twice, it's perfectly fine. I mean, it's not a bad thing that they put the volume really high, but there's really no need. Second of all, the speaker back here. It's both quieter and more distorted than Samsung speakers that I've heard, which is not a good thing. It's definitely an acceptable speaker, very up to par with other phone speakers, but it's not the best I've heard. Not a complaint really, just a note. Next up is the screen. As you can see, the screen is fairly nice. It's very dense, it's 275 ppi, which is quite good actually. It's QHD in 4 inches, and after coming from a phone that's 4.3 inches and WVGA, which is lower resolution and a bigger size, this is actually a breath of fresh air. It's very sharp, pretty good colors. The display isn't too bright, but it's a decent brightness. Unfortunately, whites appear a little bit pink. I know that's an issue for a lot of people with a lot of phones where whites aren't accurate. Well, this phone doesn't display whites as a perfect white. They have a slightly pinkish hue, especially compared to my tablet, which has very good whites. I'm sure this could be fixed in a software update, and let's hope Verizon does provide a software update. So it's an easy fix, and the screen overall is quite good. Not too accurate, but it suffices. One thing that I really enjoyed about this phone is the camera. I've never used an instant shutter camera, so this thing kind of amazed me. As you can see, it takes photos as fast as you need it to. And that's actually really useful. I have a Samsung Galaxy S2, so it's very, very slow. Shutter speeds can be up to a second and a half long, and I really don't like that. But I've gotten used to it, and after this, I just really can't go back. Now, the actual camera quality, it's not bad. It's fairly good. Some of these photos I've taken are fairly good. The colors are nothing special, the details nothing special, and overall it's just a pretty good camera, nothing great. I just think that instant shutter is an amazing feature and should be in every single phone, and I'm glad it's coming to a lot of phones. One thing I'd like to talk about is focus. As you can tell, you move it ever so slightly and it refocuses constantly. This defeats the purpose of instant shutter because it just wastes all this time focusing again and again. Plus, focus is often inaccurate. I've had times where it just refused to focus on anything that I wanted it to, and it's just kind of a disappointment. Another thing is that it has a very weak LED flash. This isn't a big deal, it's strong enough, but sometimes I couldn't get the right shot just because it was weak. Yes, LED flashes are bad in general on every phone, but you might as well use it once in a while to get that shot. And this one is not bad, but not very strong, and I had an issue with that. Although I'm kind of a camera perfectionist, again, my S2 serves me really well. The camera is absolutely fantastic and the LED is very strong. It's a trade-off, of course, because it's very slow, but I've heard great things about the Galaxy S3. Also, this camera has very, very bad low-light performance. I've had to shoot at night once in a while, and it just wouldn't capture anything. When you put it into nighttime mode, it doesn't do anything. The pictures look exactly the same. I compared them. While my S2 shot perfectly fine in nighttime, it was a bit blurry, but it captured a lot of detail and a lot of light. This just came out almost completely black on the street with street lamps around. So that's what I'm very disappointed with. I expected a little more from HTC, especially with their other cameras doing so well in low light. But I guess that's the problem with missing the image sense chip. I didn't expect one chip to do so much, but apparently it does. Next up is sound. This is one of the selling points of the HTC Incredible 4G LTE because it does have Beats audio. Now what does Beats audio give you? Really just a software equalization. It doesn't do much. It boosts bass, boosts treble, washes out the mids, and makes everything louder. Now I have a pair of fairly nice Bose headphones, and really, it didn't improve anything. I listen to EDM and it actually sounds a lot better with Beats off. This is surprising because EDM has a lot of bass, and I wanted it to use Beats, but it just sounds a lot worse. A lot of it was washed out and you miss out on a lot of detail, so I keep Beats off. Also, this uses the same processor, which means it uses the same audio card as every other Snapdragon S4 phone in the US, which is almost all of them now, and honestly, the audio disappoints. Details aren't very well heard, the audio is a bit muddy, and I'm just very unimpressed. As somewhat of an audiophile, I think that they could have done a lot better. This is why I'm trying to get an international Galaxy S3 instead of an AT&T one, just because the international one has an amazing Wolfson micro audio card, while the US one, they all have Crate audio, which is the one that this has, and I'm very, very unimpressed, honestly. I think they could have done a lot better. One important thing about this phone is performance. It's very similar to the HTC One S, so I went into a T-Mobile store and compared them head to head. You'd think the HTC One S would be slower because it's a display model. Actually, HTC One S is a lot faster than this phone, and I've noticed a lot of people complaining about lag. It's not very smooth, especially with stock Sense Launcher. I removed that because I just couldn't handle the lag. Some things are smooth, but there's a lot of lag in some places. Web browsing is not smooth. And it just seems to be software issues because I know that the Snapdragon S4 can handle a lot better than this. Nothing is too smooth here, and that's very disappointing. Fortunately, that doesn't apply to everything. I think it's just the UI. I installed Dead Trigger on this phone, and Dead Trigger is quite an impressive game in terms of graphics, and it ran it at high settings, absolutely no problem, and it looked fantastic, no lag whatsoever. I think it's just a software problem with the UI, because we all know that the Snapdragon S4 is a very, very nice processor. And the One S proves that, because the One S handles the same QHD resolution, opens apps faster, makes everything perfectly smooth, and that's a bit disappointing. Now it's time to talk about software. This runs the version of Android 4.0.3 with a Sense 4 overlay. This is the newest Sense version that's on all 1 series phones, and honestly, I've been quite impressed with it most of the time. It has a lot of good features, and while not a very good-looking overlay, as it has absolutely no ICS elements, it fares quite well. Now, any ICS app just looks completely wrong on this phone because it just doesn't match. This phone looks quite legacy. It reminds me of Cupcake, to be honest. That's not quite a bad thing. It's not bad looking, but it's not the greatest looking. I especially hate the white settings menus, and this overscroll just looks like a toy to me. And the overscroll only works in settings menus and the messaging app and such. In browser or in other apps, there is no overscroll animation whatsoever, not even the original glow from Ice Cream Sandwich. And that's quite upsetting because I like the glow from Ice Cream Sandwich. I think they messed with the UI a little too much, but it adds a lot of good features. The personalized options are quite nice. I'm running Apex Launcher, but Sense Launcher is also quite good. It's just a bit laggy to me, and for some people that's okay, but not for me. I will show you Sense right now. And there you go. It takes a while to load the first time on every boot, but it's a fairly good launcher. Their widgets are nice, I have to admit that, and I keep their widgets around. They only work on the original launcher, unfortunately. And as you can tell, there is quite a bit of lag on this launcher at times. It's quite unfortunate. They did completely change the widget adding menu from Ice Cream Sandwich, and it's not a bad menu. I like it actually. And you can't change the wallpaper from here. You'd have to go into settings and personalize. Now this is where HTC shines. They have scenes which you can customize with different layouts and everything, one for work, one for home, one for travel. It's quite nice. Also skins, there's a built-in theme engine which doesn't support many themes, but it's still nice to have for sure. Wallpapers, now this is the one problem that I have with the selector. It's too sensitive. Just trying to swipe it slightly goes too... It's very clunky, and the same thing with live wallpapers. It forces itself everywhere. I'm not a big fan of it, but it works. It works well enough. I'm running a Jelly Bean live wallpaper that I got from the market. This does not come with the phone.